In the theater of modern politics, it's often hard to separate genuine policy debate from calculated performance. But every now and then, a speech cuts through the noise, not just by what it says, but by how it systematically dismantles an opponent's entire platform. This is the story of how one representative turned a committee hearing into a masterclass on political messaging, forcing a difficult conversation about facts, fallacies, and the real-world consequences of political deadlock. Let's watch the key moments that set the stage for this confrontation.
Thank you so much. Texas on top of Texas. Very interesting. My colleague just mentioned that we should talk about facts instead of fallacies. So I do want to make sure that we address a couple of facts, starting with the fact that Republicans claim to be pro-life, but they're anything but. Considering the fact that we just had a woman and her 2 children that died, they drowned in the state of Texas because our governor decided that federal authorities should not be allowed to actually try to save those people.
Order, Mr. Chairman, could you instruct the member to not use profanity to interrupt other members?
And can we not keep running down my time?
We'll hold your time. You'll get it back. Remind members to have decorum during the hearing today. Ms. Crockett, you may continue. Please restore 10 seconds to her time.
The fact is, these people died at our border in Texas on Friday. We are here today having a hearing, and the pro-life party does not want to talk about the fact that there was basically state-issued or sanctioned death at the Texas border. There can be nothing more inhumane than the fact that we have not even decided that we were going to discuss this on the pro-life side. But you know what? I do want to talk about some other facts that we have. Republicans can't do the basic job that we are supposed to do. You see, in 2 days, we are scheduled to shut down. They can't figure out how to do a budget because we're 6 months behind, but somehow they are going to solve this complex issue of immigration. I seriously doubt it. And to quote a great known as Riri, also known as Rihanna, how about we give a round of applause, a standing ovation, because we have absolutely had nothing more than performative politics. In fact, my Texas colleague just finished his comments by specifically talking about the election in November and who's going to win it. We are not here to campaign. We are supposed to be here to legislate, but we have done everything except for legislate. So let's go through a few more facts. Democrats have introduced legitimate, sensible legislation to address what we're seeing. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to grandstand for political purposes rather than work with Democrats and fix an immigration system that has been broken for decades. Republicans continue to vilify people, including mothers and their children. And as I just said, we just lost a mother and her children. We also know that the gentle lady from Florida, who happens to be the only member to give birth this session, specifically admitted that she actually wants a child separation policy. I can't think of something more ironic than that particular member specifically advocating for child separation policies. Republicans are yelling that states don't have the tools to help with migrants, but rather than work with Democrats, Republicans are targeting communities of color in Democratic cities like Chicago, New York, and Philadelphia. And while they say that it's about Democrat-run cities, I do want to point out another similarity that they have. These are cities that are run by African Americans. So while I know that they love to pretend as if there are no racial undertones, it is just striking to me that we specifically are going after African American-run cities. And we talk about the mayor of New York. I don't know when I've ever seen so much bipartisanship and agreement out of the Republicans, but they continue to talk about what the mayor of New York has said. Let me tell you about somebody else who wanted to speak out about New York, and I want to make sure that she understands that the Democrats aren't the problem, but the Republicans are, and that's Cardi B. Cardi B specifically talked about her frustration because the mayor came out and said that they don't have the resources that they need. But guess who has actually tried to give the resources to these cities and who is stood in obstruction. President Biden. To be clear, President Biden has tried to give state and local governments and nonprofits federal resources to support temporary food, shelter, and other services, but MAGA House Republicans are refusing to give those cities and states those resources. President Biden has tried to put 1,300 more Border Patrol agents at the border to help, but Republicans have obstructed that request. Republicans want to cut the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. President Biden has tried to give our border agents 100 new cutting-edge inspection devices and add 1,000 additional law enforcement personnel. Republicans obstructed that request. Honestly, I can't tell if y'all are for anything other than obstruction and cruelty. Just take a look at my governor last week. He said, and I quote, "The only thing we're not doing is we're not shooting people who come across the border because, of course, the Biden administration would charge us with murder." I know Governor Abbott doesn't understand the law, but let me say this, that absolutely would.
Representative Crockett's strategy is immediately clear. She takes her colleagues' own words, facts, instead of fallacy, and uses them as a weapon to reframe the entire debate. She begins not with immigration policy, but with a recent, tragic event: the drowning of a woman and her 2 children at the Texas border. This is a deliberate tactic. By juxtaposing the Republican pro-life stance with these deaths, which she directly blames on the Texas governor's policies, she immediately frames their platform as hypocritical. She isn't just debating policy, she's launching a direct challenge to their moral authority. Notice how she repeatedly returns to the theme of basic government competence. She points out the irony of Republicans claiming they can solve the complex issue of immigration when, in her words, they can't even perform the fundamental task of passing a budget to avoid a government shutdown. This is crucial because it paints the opposition as being focused on performative politics for an upcoming election rather than on the actual work of governing. 3 core themes emerge from her speech. First, the charge of hypocrisy, contrasting the pro-life label with actions she describes as cruel. Second, the theme of deliberate obstruction, where she details specific actions the Biden administration has tried to take, like adding more border agents and technology, only to be blocked by Republicans. Finally, she argues that this is all political theater, designed to vilify opponents and appeal to a voting base rather than legislate solutions. This exchange is more than just a viral moment. It's a microcosm of the current political landscape in Washington. The core tension on display is the conflict between legislating and messaging. Crockett argues that while Democrats have put forward specific proposals to manage the border and fund government services, the opposition's primary goal isn't to find a solution, but to keep the problem alive as a potent political issue for the upcoming election. Think of it this way: solving a complex problem like immigration requires compromise and often yields results that don't fit neatly on a campaign poster. Maintaining a crisis, however, provides a clear and simple message to voters. The border is broken, and it's the other party's fault. This strategy prioritizes electoral victory over policy resolution. The mention of targeting cities with African American mayors adds another layer, suggesting that these political maneuvers may carry racial undertones, aiming to energize certain segments of the electorate by creating conflict in specific demographic areas. So, what are the key takeaways from all of this? First, political rhetoric has real-world consequences. Crockett directly links the pro-life label to the deaths at the border, forcing a collision between abstract values and concrete outcomes. Second, obstruction can be a deliberate political strategy. By allegedly blocking funding for border agents and technology, a party can simultaneously blame the administration for border failures while ensuring those failures continue. Third, the most effective political arguments are often built on specifics. Crockett doesn't just say her opponents are unhelpful. She lists the exact measures for more agents, funding, and technology that she claims they have blocked, turning a vague complaint into a detailed accusation. This brings us to the fundamental question at the heart of this entire debate. Is the primary role of an elected official to solve the nation's problems, or is it to win the next election at any cost? And more importantly, can the two ever truly be separated in today's political climate? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this analysis helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video.